At the end of Resistance Fall of Man, old Nathan Hale had found himself in a bit of a tricky situation. After taking out the Sirius Sam underground facilities that were powering all these Chimera aliens, and left with the British government thinking that he had died, he was apprehended by some giggity schmoodle men. That's right, some Spec Op Green Beret super soldiers had apprehended him, and he looked like he was probably going to get probed a lot. Probably in the back region of where your poop goes. And I bet you're wondering, why do they apprehend this guy? Well, one, he is an American soldier, and they might act like he's going AWOL or something. And two, I mean, if you have a super soldier that's enhanced with Chimera DNA, you want that dude back, and that's exactly what they had happen. They pulled him back into the fold, and now he is under the regime of like a super sentinel team, a team of other soldiers such as himself, doing one thing and one thing only, and that's pushing Chimera's butts all the way through their jugular. And this is The Resistance 2. Now, I'm gonna do this a little bit.
Wait, wasn't the first game supposed to be my baby boy's killer?
In what world has Master Chief ever been known as a baby boy?
And who are you to tell me how our relationship is?
You are absolutely right, Cortana. If there's one thing I do know about you, you are into some kinky stuff.
Exactly, so if I want to call him my sweet, sweet baby boy Master Chief, I am fully allowed to.
Absolutely. Is there anything you actually want to add to this conversation that's productive, or are you just here to be a weird kink fetish person?
Well, the first game was a complete mishmash of combat styles, and on top of that, the mechanics were all over the place and completely wonky. And to be honest, it was really kind of mid.
Wow, honestly, pretty fair assessment.
You know, I'm more than just two fat holographic tits, you dumb cuck boy. I sometimes have profound things to say, and I'm gonna leave you with one thing. Halo better.
To think I had faith in you. Dear God, you're annoying. But, to be fair to Cortana, I think that she did make some fair assessments in her statement. When I played the first game, it felt like a mishmash of Call of Duty, Halo, and any id Tech 4 game that came out, whether it be Doom 3, Quake 4, Prey. It just kind of felt like a bad mishmash of all of those. The game itself wasn't atrocious. I felt like there were a lot of redeeming qualities, but it was trying to do everything and not doing any of it really particularly well. Nothing game-breaking, nothing like I looked at the game and said, God, I'd rather beat my penis with a hammer, but it was just fine. Especially when it came into the story department. It would have been one of those things that I could have overlooked a lot of the gameplay if the story would have been very, very strong. But what it was trying to do was kind of do the World War II point-to-map system that was made iconic by the early Call of Duty games. Only left with a ton more questions, and it's not a war you have any previous knowledge on like Call of Duty, so when you're going from point to point, you already have a pre-based knowledge of what happened in World War II, so you're seeing these iconic battles and these iconic fronts, and you're kind of excited to go to these new places. But instead, you're carried with a war you've never seen before, so these fronts really don't make any sense to you. The game has to do the heavy lifting there. On top of that, you're kind of left with a narrator who's a very underdeveloped character, a main character who it leaves you with more questions than actual answers due to the fact that he has Chimera DNA in him, and then you're left with another character that was like this British dude that made absolutely no fucking impression on anybody whatsoever, that at the point that when he actually died, it really didn't matter. So all we had was a game that left me with just a little bit of a chub and not even a little bit of pre-cum dripping from my tip. And the reason why I'm emphasizing all of this right away at the beginning of this video, the first 3 or so minutes, is because I think it's very important to emphasize the fact that the first game was beaming with potential, but it left you with a lot of holes in terms of narrative and plot holes everywhere. There was a ton of holes, and even though I love myself some good, deep, juicy holes, I don't like it when it comes in terms of narrative, which left me with the hope that the sequel would pick up a lot of the heavy lifting that the first game didn't, and dear God was I right. Not only are you introduced to a cast of characters that are all incredibly memorable because you're all a part of this squadron. You've all have Chimera DNA inserted in you because doctors be doing fucking weird doctor stuff. This character I want to highlight is the guy on screen right here, the black guy. His name is Benjamin Warner. He has like the most interesting character design compared to his voice acting I've ever seen. He sounds like Sarge from the Halo series, only he looks like Steve fucking Urkel. I found him to be throughout the campaign kind of a running force, kind of on your side, the real friendly character that wanted to keep the plot moving forward. I found him really engaging in that way. He was always that cool bad mamma jamma you'd hear on the radio that would just keep you wanting to keep kicking fucking ass. I always love a character like that who's got a really cool ass voice. It's like, hey Marines or some shit, and wants you to fucking push some penises back into their buttholes and turn them into a super vagina. I really like when that shit happens in games, and I really liked his dynamic to Nathan Hale, the main character, because you see the other character we have is Joe Capelli. Now, Joe Capelli is kind of the character that's supposed to be giving the main character a little bit of pushback. He's there to keep him on check. He's never just going to allow Nathan to do whatever the fuck he wants. He's there to step in his way when he needs to step in his way, to put him back in his place. I really liked him as a character, and I'm glad they didn't do the thing where they make a secondary character into the villain just because he's the one guy to do pushback against the main character. It's something that really irks me when they do it, and it's just kind of thrown in to add, oh, look at the little bit of controversy we have here. Oh, remember when they pushed each other around and Nathan choked him out? Well, that led him to going full Chimera, and now he's a part of the hive mind, and he's been the evil guy all along. I'm really glad they didn't do that in this game. I think it would have distracted from the main goals and the main premise. I think that the point of having him be the strong voice of reason compared to Hale, where Hale was just all goal-oriented, where he just wanted to kick ass and fucking take these motherfuckers down into the center of the earth and then just kind of have some fun with their buttholes. It was nice to have somebody that would do a little pushback, and I really liked his character dynamic in that regard. You will see Nathan kind of make a lot of poor decisions throughout this campaign, really in regards to the fact that he's supposed to be getting these injections which calm down his Chimera urges, the things that you kind of see in the first game that are kind of highlighted, but they don't do absolutely anything with when he's having those flashbacks and he's able to see things that other people aren't able to see because of the fact that he has Chimera DNA in him. But they don't really explain any of that in the first game. It's just kind of a question that you have. And in this game, they really go into the idea of what it is and why it happened. Well, you see, there is this giant invasion happening, obviously, and just by blowing up the giant underground facilities, it seemed that that really wasn't the final straw, so they needed to do a little bit more. But before all that, when the invasion first started, the scientist that's in the first two games, and pretty prevalent in the first two games, old fucking dickhead bald guy here. Okay, he's not a dickhead, he's pretty chill, but he kind of experimented on people, and the main antagonist of this game was the failed first experiment of combining Chimera DNA with humans. You see, the overall goal was to make sure that there were some humans that were able to fight back and not get infected by the Chimera strain that really would kill off a lot of humanity. That was what we saw happen in Europe in the first game. But the first candidate didn't really go that well. The bro just kind of took some DNA and turned into a fucking amalgamation hive mind super being of Chimera monstrosity who wanted to then further the goals of Chimeras by taking over the entire world. And it is why, by destroying those facilities, he kind of set in motion the ability for the Chimeras to live without the hive mind central stations. After seeing what had happened with this first experiment, when they did the secondary ones, they kind of put in a safeguard antidote that would keep them more human than they were Chimera, which they're supposed to take these injections every so often. But throughout the story of the campaign, throughout this full press, there really isn't any time for Nathan to go back and get these injections he needs to stay alive, because in order to stay fully human, he has to have them every so often. But at the same time, you can't just stop a fucking invasion to go back home and get some fucking money up when your funny's down. All of this kind of leads to Nathan having a kind of a breakdown where his Chimera blood flow is way overtaking his human blood flow, and he really breaks down to the end of the game to the point that he only has a few hours left to live where he can maintain his humanity. And it's just kind of this really cool, you're running with the clock, you're running against that clock, baby, it's ticking, oh man, are we gonna come, or are we gonna die? And I really liked this dynamic at the end of the game. I think that it really highlighted the effects that were being taken on the main character, which weren't highlighted on at all in the first game. So you really got a lot more character moments in the second iteration of the Resistance. You have a lot more pushing, a lot more fucking stakes involved than the first game ever had, which is super cool, and it kept me engaged in the story from beginning to end. It was just awesome seeing the dynamic of this special unit that was made just to fight Chimeras. It was nice to have a character that was willing to do pushback, who was looking at Nathan Hale, who was slowly turning into a monster, and was like, listen, motherfucker, if you change, I will put a bullet in you, and it is what needs to happen. And Nathan knows that this is the one guy, that Joe is the only guy that will be the guy who steps in the way and will do what needs to be done. And I like that they kind of built his character in that direction, instead of building it in the way that he becomes part of the hive mind, because they really could have gone either way. They could have said, okay, well, we have this guy that's doing pushback, who's annoyed with Nathan, and he's seeing that this is the way things are going, and he might have, like, some tendencies to get really mad and really pent up and go full Chimera, but he never does that. He is there to be the standing force against Nathan, which I thought was really, really fucking cool. And a matter of fact, there's this really cool, tense moment when Nathan kind of is getting over-corrupted by the Chimera juices flowing through his butthole, and he really can't fucking hold it anymore, and he starts to, like, stutter and shake, and he falls to the ground, and fucking Joe pulls out his fucking gun, and he's like, I will end this right here, right now. And the sergeant's kind of trying to get him to calm down, and there's just this moment of just like, I will fucking do what has to be done for the sanctity of society in the entire world, because we are not playing games here. And it just was a wonderful moment. It was incredibly tense. It made me feel that all the characters mattered. I mean, even when we had a character death in this game, like, it honestly seemed to matter, which is the opposite of what happened in the first game. When you have a death, you all kind of push onto the space station. You have a giant nuke. You know the hive mind amalgamation taint wagon monster is on this spaceship. You know that this is where you have to fucking blow this bitch up, send this bitch flying. Nathan Hale is going to be the one that hits the switch because he's basically on his deathbed anyway. You're all pushing that direction, and you lose Benjamin. Benjamin dies. It's a real sad moment because you cared about him. You actually have a character that was dynamic. You learn about his family that was in Idaho, and when you're running through Idaho Falls, you're actually, or maybe it was Twin Falls. In Idaho, you have Twin Falls and Idaho Falls. It's one of the falls. But you're in this area, and you've already learned about his family. You've learned about his life. You kind of see the behind the rough, tough, kind of stereotypical black sergeant voice. You really kind of learn who he is as a character. So when you lose him, it's sad, dude. You do feel the loss of a character, which is so much more than the first game was able to do. And it really kind of pushed this game into a new direction. And when you do finally take out the very end of the Chimeras, you blow up the space station, and you're all the way crashing down on the ground. It's only you and Joe left, and Joe kind of is sitting there just beat to hell. He wakes up, and you know that fucking Nathan has lost it at this point. He has gone full Chimera. He's on the verge of becoming the ultimate monster. And for me, I thought this was going to be the point that they were going to kind of set up Nathan to be the villain of the third game, but instead they just do the correct thing in regards to doing the perfect story beat where they have Joe walking up behind him, and he's just like, Nathan, what's going on, buddy? And Nathan's just rattling off shit about, like, destiny and destroying the world, basically, and it just puts Joel in the situation where he has to make the choice, where he's now in the position, even though he finally came around to liking Nathan, he knows what has to be done, and he pulls that fucking trigger. It is beautiful. It is remarkable. I loved this ending so much. I loved the entire story of this game, from fucking point A to point fucking ZW anal beads. Every single section of it I thought was amazing. Way better than the first game in almost every single conceivable way, at least when it came to the story. Now, I know what you're thinking. King Jiffy, you've talked a lot about story, but you haven't talked about gameplay or mechanics or anything like that. Well, I do have to say it's not quite up to a lot of the games of its time period, especially when you're looking at some of the top ones. It is a massive improvement on the first game. Gone are the days of walking through a door and just getting obliterated by trap mines, which the first game loved to put absolutely everywhere. It was incredibly annoying, made the game just feel tedious and just garbage. I just did not like the trap mines in the first game. But trap mines aside, let's get real into the prolapsed anus of this game. The real pointer is the guns. The guns are an improvement in almost every single weapon in terms of design and aesthetic. They almost all work better and look cooler. It's not like the game's completely unidentifiable from the last iteration, but I think what they did was they took the improvements that they could make and they made them, and everything feels and seems to look way cooler, like I said. The fluidity just seems to really be there. I also like the idea that they dropped the multi-weapon system and went with a traditional Call of Duty or Halo-like, where you have to pick up your guns and you really have to think which weapons will help you in the later portions of the level, really making you decide in the moment what the better weapon's going to be. Now, I know a lot of the FPS guys out there like to hate on the two-weapon system, but I've always enjoyed it in certain situations, and this game really facilitates that idea. This feels a lot more akin to a Call of Duty than it did Halo in the last iteration. Now, you could say that the level design seems to be a little bit more Halo, and I would disagree. I think that the more linear linear style and tight corridor shooting you're getting, even when you have your open-air spaces, it still feels very much more Call of Duty than the last game. And it seems to just really have a more straightforward goal than the other game did. The other game seemed to really bounce between the idea that it wanted to have the open areas where you could drive around and really have that exploration that you got in something like Halo, but then also wanted to be a tight corridor shooter like Call of Duty or a cover-based shooter like Call of Duty, and it really couldn't make any decisions on what it wanted to be. This game knows what it wants to be. It wants to be an alien Call of Duty-like, and then when you do have the boss fights, they are incredibly fun and really well done. Now, most of them do have a gimmick or something in order to beat them, but it's kind of boils down to shoot them and then sometimes shoot specific areas, and they're all fun. There's nothing that's too out of the realm of cool. I mean, for the most part, the first boss fight was very cinematic, and actually almost every moment of this game is incredibly cinematic. And I love the fact that they figured out a way to really tone down the piss filter, which was just such a loved darling child of every game that came out in this era. On top of that, the mechanics are actually freaking usable. The only gripe that I had with all the mechanics is the fact that sprint and crouch are tied to the same button and you cannot change it in the options. It just seems like a weird choice to me. You either hold down to sprint or tap to crouch. It does lead to a lot of accidental teabagging, and that's the real issue with tying sprint and crouch to the same button. I really didn't understand why they went with that choice, considering they had so many other different buttons that weren't even utilized in this gameplay, so it just was a weird choice to me, but it didn't like win or lose the game at the end of the day. No, I'm bouncing a little bit all over the place, but I do want to highlight one weapon I absolutely loved that was an addition to this game. One thing I said about the last game was it would have been better if they added a scope to the auger. It would have felt more dynamic because that weapon really feels like it deserved a scope. They didn't do that in this game, unfortunately, but what they did do is add a weapon that was basically the battle rifle from Halo 2, and it is awesome. It is a combination of like the power of the DMR in Halo 3. Hold up, before you roast me in the comments, I had cum on the brain. I know it's Halo Reach, but it combines with a DMR from Halo Reach and the battle rifle from Halo 2 in like this perfect amalgamation of an awesome weapon. I love this thing. It's one of my steady utilized weapons throughout the campaign. No matter any time I saw to pick it up, it was my go-to. I fucking love this gun. And when we lead into the next area, you do end up getting another weapon that I think is just way overhauled and way better. But I have to say one thing. There's a section in the early portion of the game where you meet the invisible enemies, and again, this is where it's taking inspiration from stuff like Halo. The Halo inspiration is still there. It's always going to be there, but I do think that this is much more heavily Call of Duty inspired. I do like the fact that the greens are really pushing through in the color scheme, which at this time period was a lot of the games getting muddied down. I mean, just look at the jump from Oblivion to Skyrim, and you'll see the fact that everything was like, oh, well, let's just make everything yellow and brown and mushy. This game really tried to push the greens and push the color contrast, which is something I really appreciated when the first game didn't do that much at all. And to be honest, it's super important for them to push the color contrast, considering you're going to be fighting a lot of invisible enemies in this area, which kind of feels like you have this Predator section of the game. This feels like an awesome, like, penis tickle of what a Predator game would feel like in the first person. It's just amazing. This is the type of stuff that this studio is really pulling out of the fucking waterworks at the time period, and I don't know what happened to this Insomniac. Another thing is the shotgun. What else can I say other than it kicks fucking ass, dude? This thing pushes buttholes in harder than a gay orgy, dude. This thing is so badass. It is just the hardest hitting gun in your arsenal. I do have to say the sound design is a little weak. It sounds like I'm shooting a 410 and feels like I'm shooting a 410, but the impact is like the Halo 2 shotgun, dude. This thing just blows things over. It has so much power. It's like a fucking 8 gauge or some shit. I kind of touched on it a second ago, and it's kind of amazing to me when I play this game just to see what Insomniac used to be. Something I heavily noticed in the last game, and it's also something I notice every time I play Ratchet and Clank, how they used to just be a studio that was just cool. It just, everything they made had like a cool vibes. Even their like goofy Ratchet and Clank stuff was like perfectly themed for the atmosphere and the story they were trying to tell. And then I play anything from modern Insomniac, and it just feels like millennial bullshit, dude. It's your fucking typical California tech bro garbage. It feels like it's a creation from that douchebag in GTA 5, you know, the tech bro loser who fucking just sucked, dude. He was made to make fun of people like the people who designed most of the modern Insomniac games. In fact, when I play something like Sunset Overdrive in the new Spider-Man games, I'm like, where the fuck did the people who made Resistance 2 go? Because this game's just got all balls to the wall action. It tells a really cool story. I mean, is it breaking any bounds with the storytelling? No, not really. It's nothing I haven't seen before or done similarly to other things that existed in the time, but it is really well put together. This was just a fucking elevation of everything they tried to do in the first game in terms of story. It was perfect in that regard. When I look at the writing, it's tough, it's cool, and it does have a lot of heart mixed in there, and it's not just a bunch of fucking whiny millennial bullshit, which is so surprising considering the first game I ever played from Insomniac was Sunset Overdrive, and I was pretty sure that that game was written by a bunch of retarded monkeys. Like, literally, they pulled monkeys out of a cage with Down syndrome and said, write us a script and try to make it somewhat functionable, and that's what they got, and all the jokes just made me want to claw my own eardrums out. But then I play this game, and I'm like, what the fuck happened, dude? What actually happened? And I know I'm getting a little bit soapboxy here, but it's so insane how incredible of an experience I had with the Resistance 2 is, and the fact that I'm looking at Sony, who hasn't remastered this game, but they've remastered The Last of Us 2 like 87 fucking times, but here I am playing a game that's actually amazing. Like, this experience was incredible. There was only one problem I had with the whole game, and that's the crouch thing, and maybe the fucking auger, which I don't have a clip of the auger on screen right now, but we'll get to it eventually. I got a bunch of different B-roll here, but the only gun that really had to step back was the auger, and it was a little broken in the first game, so I understand why they toned it back for balancing, and I think they overbalanced it to where it just didn't feel as good. That's why the marksman was such a great addition, because where the auger was faulting, the marksman really picked up the slack. So again, I don't think that's even a gripe. I just think that it was a weird balancing choice, but nothing that really pulled me out of the game. And I feel like every level and every character was just a step above and beyond what the first game did. Because I'm going to be honest with you, if this game wouldn't have like highlighted and pushed the story and pushed the gameplay way more than the first game did, I wouldn't have played the third. I wouldn't even be thinking about playing the third. I mean, it seems like they really understood the mistakes they made with the first game, just trying to push out a Halo killer, and they were like, how do we really push the envelope with the second game, really highlight this experience to be something incredibly memorable? And that's what they did. I mean, just plowing down giant monsters with a shotgun, and every fucking hit just lays shit on its ass. This edge is not something you can just get from a fucking dull butter knife drawer. No, you have to have this edge honed and crafted, and it's something that I think is crucially missing from the modern video games from Insomniac. I mean, just come on, look how cool this fucking slow motion sniper rifle is, and how you can just like pop heads and rip backs out in it. It's so much better than the fucking pea shooter from the first Resistance game. The sniper rifle in Resistance 1 sucks. It sucks so much wiener that it probably has a broken jaw, and it's just waiting for the next tip insertion. Also, for all you boys and girls out there listening to this video and you're watching me play this and you see the fucking epic design that is the revolver, this is one of the coolest revolvers ever designed in video game history. It's amazing. It's functionally perfect. I mean, you shoot things and then you can explode the bullet after it like embeds itself into something, but it also has like the cool red flashing lights. This pistol's fucking awesome. It's amazing. I want you to slap your butt cheeks together every time you see this gun fire off. It's just perfect. I don't know how to like amplify the design of this game any better than this like weird southern area that you're living in right now. This southern mansion that probably had some ties to slavery at one point is absolutely epic. The color design, everything. It's something that I look at this and I'm like, holy shit, how the fuck did they go from like the most boring, bland, piss-filtered garbage to this fucking absolute giga chad, multi-powerful, color-designed epic masterpiece? And on top of that, you have these moments that are just so over top. I remember at one point I'm in the top of that southern slave mansion, right? And I'm shooting these monsters that are running in, but I know that I can't keep them at bay and they're gonna start running in the house, so I instantly switch to the auger and start shooting them through the fucking floors of the house. It was so cool. It was one of the coolest things I'd done in a game, period. Just shooting aliens as they run through the front door in the hallway. I'm literally shooting fish in a barrel. It is just a really fun moment that I had. It was something really cool. I liked that the weapon, even though the auger, you couldn't see everything right away, the way way it works in this game compared to the last game is you have to have seen the enemy, like, from you to the enemy. You couldn't see them through glass, you couldn't see them through, like, a curtain of jizz. You had to have seen the enemy, and then it would take place where you could see it with the auger through walls. I liked that for balancing. It was a little annoying, considering in the last game you could, like, pre-check areas to see if there's enemies around corners, and you couldn't do that in this game. So again, the auger was a little broken in the last game. I will give the developers their fair due when they were like, okay, we need to balance this bitch a little bit so it's not overpowered. And then to end this whole area off, this whole southern mansion area, with this giant, like, monstrosity trying to attack you while you're in the building. It's where this goes from just being like a Call of Duty or Halo clone to also incorporating that Gears of War vibes that it had from the last game. It really, like, pushed the bounds of enemy design way further than the first game even did. And I'm playing a little bit of the third one in preparation for another review, and I have to say, so far, the game with the best enemy variety and design so far is the Resistance 2. I know that's a sneak peek into my next video, which you'll probably see next week, but I have to say, it was just, like, so over the top compared to the first game, and it's just so amazing what they were able to do with their set design and everything. And this ended up being one of my favorite games I've played in the FPS genre. I think that this one was a huge knockout of the park. I really hope that the Resistance 3 lives up to what I had and the fun I had throughout this experience, and it's able to capitalize on the storytelling beats and everything that this game was able to do. I'm just so excited to really dive into the Resistance 3, but that's all I got for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you on the next one.